The moment she said, "We were 3 weeks away from shutting everything down," the room went silent, and that's when I realized the scribbles I had almost thrown away could change everything. If you love stories that remind you how ordinary people can create extraordinary change, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss what happens next. It started on a night that felt like every other exhausting night in my life. I was sitting in a dim corner of a small roadside cafe, my 6-year-old daughter asleep beside me, her head resting on my arm while I tried not to wake her. Being a single dad wasn't something I had planned. Life had a way of tearing things apart faster than you could fix them. My wife had passed away 2 years earlier, and ever since, it had just been me and little Aisha against the world. Money was tight, really tight. I worked 2 jobs, one as a warehouse assistant during the day and another delivering packages at night. I barely slept, barely ate properly, and constantly felt like I was one step away from everything collapsing. But every time I looked at Aisha, I reminded myself why I couldn't give up. That night, I was waiting for a delayed pickup. The cafe owner knew me by now and didn't mind if I sat for hours as long as I ordered tea. I had a napkin in front of me, and for no particular reason, I started sketching. You see, working in deliveries, you notice things. Inefficiencies, wasted time, routes that made no sense, trucks half empty while others were overloaded, drivers crisscrossing the same streets without coordination. It always bothered me, not because I thought I could fix it, but because it felt like such a waste in a world where everyone was already struggling. So I started drawing boxes, arrows, circles. A simple idea, a dynamic routing system that adjusted deliveries in real time, clustering drop-offs based on location and priority. A shared pool system where nearby drivers could redistribute loads mid-route instead of returning to hubs. A feedback loop that updated constantly based on traffic and delays. It wasn't fancy, just lines and messy handwriting on a cheap napkin. At some point, I realized Aisha had woken up. She looked at the napkin and said, "Baba, what are you drawing?" I smiled, just trying to make work easier. She nodded like it made perfect sense, then said something I'll never forget, "Then you should show someone." I laughed it off. Who would listen to me? I was just a tired delivery guy with no degree, no connections, and no time. But life has strange ways of forcing moments. The next day, I was assigned a delivery to a corporate office building. It was one of those places where everything looked polished, glass walls, quiet hallways, people walking fast like they had somewhere important to be. The package was marked urgent. I was told to wait because the recipient needed to sign personally. That's when I met her. She looked stressed, more stressed than anyone I had ever seen in a suit. Her eyes were tired, her voice sharp but not unkind. She apologized for the delay, explaining they were dealing with a bit of a crisis. I don't know what came over me, but as she signed the papers, I noticed charts on her desk, logistics charts. Delivery timelines, route maps. It was the same chaos I dealt with every day, just on a much larger scale. Before I could stop myself, I said, "You're losing time on your routes." She looked up, surprised. "Excuse me," I froze. This was a mistake. I should have just left. But then she said, "What do you mean?" My heart was pounding. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the napkin. It was crumpled, slightly stained with tea, and honestly, embarrassing. I see this stuff every day," I said. "Your system looks like it sends drivers back to hubs too often. If you let them redistribute on the road." I trailed off, expecting her to dismiss me. Instead, she stared at the napkin. For a long time. "Wait here," she said. 10 minutes later, I found myself in a conference room with 3 other people staring at my napkin like it was some kind of treasure map. They asked questions, technical ones I wasn't sure I could answer properly. I just explained things the way I understood them, using simple logic and real-life examples. I told them about drivers wasting fuel, about delays stacking up, about how small adjustments could save hours. They didn't laugh. They listened. What I didn't know at the time was that her company was on the brink of collapse. They had been losing money for months due to inefficiencies in their delivery network. Investors were pulling out. They had weeks, maybe days, before everything fell apart. And somehow, that napkin gave them a direction. They asked me to come back the next day. I almost didn't go. I had shifts. I had responsibilities. I couldn't afford to gamble on something uncertain. But Aisha reminded me again, "You said it makes work easier. Maybe it can help them too." So I went. Days turned into weeks. They brought in engineers to translate my rough idea into actual systems. I sat in rooms I never thought I'd be allowed into, explaining things in my broken, practical way while people with degrees and titles turned it into something real. It wasn't easy. There were moments they doubted me. Moments I doubted myself. I wasn't trained. I didn't speak their language. I felt out of place constantly. But every time I thought about walking away, I remembered why I started drawing in the first place. To make things better. Slowly, things began to change. Routes became faster. Costs dropped. Deliveries became more efficient. Drivers reported less stress. Customers started noticing improvements. And then, one day, she called me into her office. This time, she wasn't stressed. She was smiling. "Do you know what your idea did?" she asked. I shook my head. "It saved this company over $40 million. I couldn't process it. 40 million, that number didn't even feel real. She continued, "It didn't just save money. It saved jobs. Hundreds of them." I thought about the drivers. People like me. People who were probably just trying to get through the day. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had done something that mattered beyond just surviving. They offered me a position. A real one. Stable income. Benefits. A future. I accepted. But the biggest moment wasn't the job offer. It was when I went home that night and told Aisha. She clapped her hands and said, "See, I told you to show someone." That's the thing about life. Sometimes the ideas that feel too small, too messy, too insignificant, are the ones that can change everything. Not because they're perfect, but because they come from real experience, real struggle, and a genuine desire to make things better. I was just a tired single dad drawing on a napkin. But that napkin carried years of observation, frustration, and hope. And in the right moment, in the right place, it became something powerful. So if you're watching this and thinking your ideas don't matter, they do. If you're struggling and feel like you're invisible, you're not. And if you've ever hesitated to share something because you thought no one would listen, remember this story. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person to say, "Wait, show me that again." If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this, stories that remind us that, even in the hardest moments, something extraordinary might be quietly waiting to unfold.